Not every connection begins with open declarations of love or grand gestures. Sometimes, before a bond deepens, subtle trials appear, silent examinations that reveal character, loyalty, and depth of intention. These moments aren't announced, and they're not written on paper. They unfold quietly in everyday life, testing patience, strength, and authenticity. The truth is, when someone desires more than just a surface-level connection, they naturally look for signs of whether the other person can walk beside them. Not just when it's easy, but when it's challenging. Patience is never tested in obvious ways. It isn't measured by a stopwatch, nor does it announce itself with warning. It shows up quietly, woven into the ordinary rhythms of life, disguised as delays, misunderstandings, or moments when things don't unfold according to plan. For many men, this is the very first way they observe a woman they desire. Not by her smile, not by her charm, but by her response when the smooth flow of comfort is interrupted. A late reply to a message, a cancelled plan, or a period of silence often becomes more than just an inconvenience. It becomes a window into her emotional balance. Does she grow restless, lash out, or demand instant answers? Or does she breathe, wait, and show that she understands life isn't always aligned with her expectations? The truth is, patience is not just about time. It is about control. The ability to hold one's emotions steady when the situation tempts chaos is rare, and it reveals strength more than words ever could. A man who is considering a deeper bond is watching not for perfection, but for grace under friction. Anyone can be kind when everything is going smoothly, but it's the reaction in the storm that shows true character. If she reacts with understanding instead of accusations, she silently communicates that she carries maturity and stability. This is not about being passive or tolerating neglect. It's about showing that her emotions are not ruled by every minor disruption. In moments of waiting, insecurities often rise to the surface. The mind begins weaving stories, imagining reasons, inventing outcomes. A woman who can resist the urge to act on those stories, who can pause instead of explode, proves that she trusts both herself and the connection she's building. That patience speaks louder than any reassurance she could give. It tells him she is not fragile glass, ready to shatter at the slightest shake, but steady ground he can walk upon. In truth, this patience is not just about him, it is about her own self-control. When she shows that she does not let external events dictate her peace, she demonstrates that her happiness is not entirely dependent on someone else. On the surface, it may look like a man is simply being careless or testing limits when he delays or pulls back, but often it is unspoken observation. He wants to know if she will crumble at the smallest distance or if she can handle the natural ebbs and flows of human connection. For many, this test is subconscious, but its results are remembered. An overreaction may create doubt, but calmness builds trust. A woman who is patient without begging, who waits without losing her self-respect, becomes unforgettable. She shows that her emotions are disciplined, her heart is strong, and her value is not tied to immediate gratification. In that quiet strength, she proves more than attraction, she proves endurance. And endurance is what sustains bonds long after desire has settled into commitment. Loyalty is not declared in words, it is revealed in choices. Consistency is not shown in big promises, it is written in the small, repeated actions that rarely draw attention but always leave an impression. When a man desires a woman, one of the quiet ways he measures her worth is by observing whether she stands steady when distractions, temptations, or uncertainties appear. It is easy to be present when everything feels secure, but the real test comes when the situation isn't ideal, when new faces enter the picture, when attention from others arises, or when circumstances demand patience instead of instant gratification. That is when loyalty becomes visible and consistency becomes undeniable. This test often unfolds subtly. A man may not ask direct questions, but he pays attention to how she behaves when others show interest. Does her energy shift, her words soften, her presence weaken when she is noticed elsewhere? Or does she remain anchored, holding the same steady posture that drew him to her in the first place? These moments, though silent, carry weight. because loyalty is not only about faithfulness in action, but also about stability in intention. A woman who does not sway with every breeze of attention proves that her connection is genuine and not based on temporary validation. Consistency, on the other hand, is the fabric that loyalty is stitched upon. It is easy to act devoted one day and distracted the next, but true consistency is measured by how she shows up time and time again. He notices whether her kindness fluctuates, whether her interest fades, whether her presence is conditional. What creates trust is not grand declarations, but the reliability of her behavior. The woman who is the same in private as she is in public, the same in good times as in difficult ones, becomes unforgettable. Her constancy tells him she is not driven by convenience, but by genuine commitment to the bond being built. This test is not about perfection, nor is it about blind loyalty to undeserving behavior. It is about whether her actions align with her words, whether she can be counted on without suspicion or doubt. A man who considers a woman seriously is not looking for a flawless partner, but for a dependable one. If she can be trusted not to waver at the first sign of difficulty, if she can remain consistent even when the road is unclear, then she proves her loyalty is not a mask but a foundation. The irony is that this test is rarely spoken aloud. He may never ask directly, but he is always observing. He notices how she treats him when he is absent, how she speaks of him when he is not around, and whether her respect remains steady regardless of circumstance. The woman who passes this unspoken test sends a message stronger than any promise that she is not temporary, that her presence is not fleeting, and that her loyalty is not just a word, but a way of being. Such consistency is rare, and when found, it is cherished deeply because it assures him that the bond will not dissolve when tested by time or temptation. Respect is not measured by grand gestures, but by how well one honors invisible lines. Boundaries are not walls meant to keep people apart. They are the quiet rules that protect individuality, dignity, and balance within a connection. When a man desires a woman, one of the most telling ways he evaluates her is by observing whether she respects those boundaries, not just his, but her own as well. This unspoken test reveals whether she understands the difference between closeness and control, between love and possession. It begins with space. Every person, no matter how deeply they care, needs moments of solitude. Time to think, time to recharge, time to breathe. A woman who understands this does not see space as rejection, but as part of the rhythm of a healthy connection. Instead of demanding constant attention, she respects the pauses, knowing that stepping back allows both individuals to return stronger. But if she pushes, if she invades every silence with suspicion or every absence with accusation, she reveals insecurity rather than intimacy. The man observes whether she can stand steady without needing to occupy every corner of his world, because in that steadiness lies emotional maturity. Boundaries also extend to decisions. He notices how she reacts when his choices do not perfectly align with hers. Does she try to control the outcome, manipulate the direction, or disregard his autonomy? Or does she respect that his path, though different at times, deserves acknowledgement? True connection is not about merging into one identical being, but about two individuals walking side by side, each with freedom intact. When she can disagree without disrespect, when she can influence without overpowering, she proves she understands the delicate balance of partnership. There is also the boundary of personal history and privacy. Every person carries experiences, some shared openly and some held closely. A woman who demands to know everything instantly, who prays beyond what is offered freely, may believe she is building closeness, but is in fact crossing into intrusion. The one who listens when he speaks but does not force what he is not yet ready to reveal demonstrates trust. By honoring the pace at which he shares, she earns more than information, she earns his confidence. What makes this test powerful is that it works both ways. A man who desires a woman notices not only if she respects his boundaries, but also whether she maintains her own. A woman who abandons all of her standards, who sacrifices her independence just to please, reveals weakness rather than strength. But the one who protects her self-respect, who says no when something feels wrong, who honors her own needs, shows that she values herself. That self-respect commands respect in return. In the end, boundaries are the silent framework of lasting connection. They create safety, they build trust, they preserve individuality within unity. A woman who respects boundaries demonstrates that she does not seek to control, but to connect. She shows that she can stand close without suffocating, love without consuming, and share without losing herself. And for a man who is seeking more than a fleeting bond, that balance is not just appealing, it is essential. Value is not something declared, it is something lived. Standards are not a list written on paper, they are the invisible compass that guides decisions, reactions, and the way a person carries themselves in every situation. When a man desires a woman, one of the most powerful ways he tests her is by observing whether she holds on to her value and standards or whether she bends them to win his approval. This is not always deliberate, but it is instinctive. Deep down, he wants to know if she is anchored in her self-worth, or if her worth is easily shaken when desire enters the picture. The truth is, attraction can tempt anyone to compromise. The urge to please can be strong, especially in the early stages when the spark feels fragile. But what keeps attraction alive long after the first rush of emotions is not how much a woman gives up, but how much she protects. If she surrenders her values the moment she fears losing someone, she reveals that her identity depends on external validation. But when she stands firm, when she knows what is acceptable and what is not, she communicates strength. And strength paired with grace is irresistible. A man may test this in small ways. Often without realizing it, he might make a casual suggestion that crosses a line, or he may watch how she responds to certain behaviors. Does she excuse disrespect, justifying it in the name of affection? Does she tolerate inconsistency, lowering her standards because she doesn't want to appear demanding? Or does she calmly and confidently assert her worth without turning it into conflict? These quiet responses reveal more than grand speeches ever could. A woman who refuses to settle for less than she deserves sends a powerful message. She values herself too highly to trade integrity for fleeting approval. What makes this test profound is that it isn't only about how she treats him, but how she treats herself. A woman who maintains her standards shows she understands her own rarity. She doesn't need to beg for attention because she knows her presence is already valuable. She doesn't need to chase because she trusts that what is meant for her will never require her to sacrifice her dignity. And when she holds this quiet strength, she shifts the balance. He realizes that winning her requires effort, respect, and alignment with the values she protects. There is also a deeper layer to this test. A man who considers a woman seriously is not just looking for beauty or charm. He is searching for stability, for someone who will not collapse when life applies pressure. Standards reveal whether she has that stability. If she changes herself at every turn to fit into someone else's mold, she becomes unpredictable, difficult to trust, easy to lose. But the woman who consistently upholds her values shows that her love, when given, will also be steady and unwavering. In the end, the way she guards her value determines how deeply she is respected. A woman who knows her worth does not need to shout it. It is written in her actions, in her boundaries, in the way she responds to every challenge. She becomes unforgettable, not because she gave everything away, but because she kept the very thing most people lose in the pursuit of love herself. Trust is a fragile currency, and once it is broken, it rarely returns in its original form. Long before a man speaks of love or commitment, he quietly observes whether the woman he desires can be trusted. This is not only about faithfulness in the physical sense, but about something deeper, the ability to protect what is private, to honor what is shared, and to carry secrets with integrity. The smallest details become tests. The way she speaks about others, the way she handles information, the way she reacts when given something sensitive. If she treats those moments with care, she shows that she can be trusted with far more than casual conversation. One of the most common unspoken tests comes when a man reveals something personal. It may be a story about his struggles, a vulnerable confession, or even an insecurity he does not share with many people. In that moment, he is not only seeking comfort, he is measuring whether she is a safe place. If she listens with empathy, if she guards his words instead of repeating them, she earns a kind of trust that cannot be faked. But if she turns his vulnerability into gossip, mockery, or leverage, he instantly knows she is not the woman to give his heart to. A man who is serious will notice every subtle sign of how she treats his openness. Trustworthiness also shows itself in consistency of behavior. A woman who says one thing but does another creates doubt, and doubt is poison to connection. He notices whether her actions align with her promises, whether her loyalty remains steady when no one is watching. The woman who can be counted on, who follows through with her words, quietly builds trust without needing to demand it. Reliability is more attractive than grand declarations because it shows that her character does not shift with convenience. Another layer of this test lies in how she handles temptation. Opportunities to betray trust exist everywhere, in conversations with others, in the lure of attention, in moments where boundaries could easily be crossed. A man who is looking beyond temporary attraction watches closely here. He doesn't always ask directly, but he pays attention to how she carries herself when no one is monitoring. If she chooses integrity, even when she could easily get away with something else, he sees her value as rare. Trustworthiness is not proven when the world is watching. It is proven in silence, in secrecy, in the choices made when no one will ever know. There is also trust in the emotional sense. He notices whether she can be counted on during moments of weakness, whether she adds to his peace or contributes to his doubt. A woman who makes him feel safe to be himself without fear of judgment or betrayal becomes someone he cannot easily let go of. Trust in this form becomes more powerful than attraction because it transforms connection from something shallow into something deeply rooted. In the end, trustworthiness is not about perfection. It is about consistency, discretion, and integrity. A woman who proves she can be trusted does not need to demand loyalty in return. It comes naturally. For a man who is serious, trust is not optional. It is the very ground upon which he decides whether to build. If she passes this test, she becomes more than desirable. She becomes irreplaceable. Ambition is the fire that drives a person forward, and support is the air that keeps that fire alive. When a man is drawn to a woman and imagines her as more than just a passing presence in his life, he looks closely at how she responds to his dreams, his struggles, and his vision for the future. This is not about material gain or empty encouragement. It is about whether she can stand beside him when he dares to chase something greater than the present moment. The unspoken test is simply, does she fuel his growth, or does she quietly extinguish it? Every man, no matter how confident he appears, carries moments of doubt. The path to ambition is not smooth. It is filled with setbacks, rejections, and obstacles that shake even the strongest spirit. In those moments, her response becomes everything. If she mocks his vision, dismisses his struggles, or belittles his ideas, she shows that she is not prepared to walk with him through the storms. But if she encourages him, even when the world is heavy against him, she reveals herself as more than a companion. She becomes a partner in his purpose. This does not mean blind approval. Genuine support is not about cheering for every idea without thought, but about offering balance, challenging him when he strays from his values, encouraging him when he hesitates, and reminding him of his strength when he forgets it himself. A woman who does this proves that she is invested not only in his success, but in his character. Her presence strengthens his ambition because he knows he is not chasing dreams alone. Men also observe whether a woman's support is consistent or conditional. Anyone can offer kind words when the vision is exciting and the future looks bright. But when the long hours come, when sacrifices are required, when results take longer than expected, the real test begins. Does she remain steady, believing in his potential, or does she retreat into frustration, demanding comfort over growth? The woman who endures the process with him shows that her loyalty extends beyond the surface of romance. She is willing to invest in a future that does not yet exist. At the same time, ambition is not one-sided. A man who is serious will notice if she carries her own dreams, her own fire, her own sense of direction. Support is not about dependency, but about partnership, two people lifting each other toward greater versions of themselves. A woman who supports his vision while pursuing her own shows balance and strength. She is not lost in his shadow, nor does she compete for light. Instead, she shines beside him. That balance creates respect, and respect deepens desire. In the end, the test of support and ambition is about foresight. A man wonders, if I build something meaningful, will she stand with me, or will she hold me back? If I stumble, will she remind me of who I am, or will she abandon me? A woman who proves she can nurture ambition while walking in her own becomes irreplaceable. She is not just desired, she is chosen, because she embodies both love and partnership, the two elements that make any dream truly worth pursuing. What ties all of these unspoken tests together is a simple truth. A man who sees potential in a woman is not only drawn to beauty or charm, he is searching for depth, stability, and strength. Every pause, every challenge, every subtle trial reveals something about her character that words alone could never show. Patience proves her balance, loyalty shows her steadiness, boundaries highlight her maturity, values reflect her self-respect, trust reveals her integrity, and support uncovers her ability to walk beside him into the unknown. These are not games, nor are they punishments. They are natural ways of observing whether a bond can last beyond attraction. Because attraction begins with desire, but connection survives only when two people can weather time, temptation, and trial together. A woman who carries herself with grace through these quiet examinations does not just win his heart, she earns his respect. And respect is the foundation upon which true love, lasting partnership, and unshakable devotion are built.